What's up, everyone? This is Joshua T. Berglan, the world's mayor, coming to you from Limbe, Cameroon. And today, I want to have a conversation that I believe Africa needs. Actually, let me say that differently. This is a conversation the world needs. Because before there is chocolate in a store, before there is coffee in a cup, before there is rice on a plate, before there is sugar in a product, before there is palm oil, cassava, maize, wheat, cocoa, coffee, or any of the other commodities that move through the billion-dollar global markets, there is a farmer, there is a human being, there is a family, there is land, there is sweat, there is weather, there is risk, there is faith, and there is investment. Today's episode is called "The Farmer is the First Investor," and I want you to really sit with that. The farmer is not the last person in the value chain. The farmer is the first investor. The farmer is the first person to taste the risk. The farmer invests before the banks get involved. The farmer invests before the exporter gets involved. The farmer invests before the factory gets involved. The farmer invests before the brand gets involved. The farmer invests before the supermarket gets involved. The farmer invests before the consumer ever tastes the final product, and yet, in far too many cases, the farmer captures the least amount of the value. How did we get here? How did the person who creates the foundation of wealth become the person most often treated like they were waiting for help? How did the person who begins the billion-dollar value chain become the person people pity? That is the lie we have to confront today. Farmers are not poor people waiting for charity. Farmers are economic architects. Farmers are producers. Farmers are builders. Farmers are value creators. Farmers are the origin point of industries that feed the world, dress the world, energize the world, and enrich corporations, governments, traders, processors, and global brands. But too often, they are invisible. And that invisibility is expensive. It is expensive for families. It is expensive for communities. It is expensive for nations. And it is expensive for Africa. Because when the people who create the value are disconnected from ownership, pricing power, processing, branding, distribution, financing, and storytelling, then wealth leaves the soil before it ever has a chance to build the community. Here in Cameroon, this conversation is not theory. This is real life. Cameroon is blessed. The land is rich. The people are strong. The potential is everywhere. Cocoa, coffee, plantains, cassava, maize, palm, fruits, vegetables, natural resources, human resources, cultural resources, spiritual resources. There is no shortage of value here. But the question is not whether Africa has value. The question is, who owns the value after it's created? That is the question. Who owns the value? Who sets the price? Who controls the story? Who gets access to the market? Who processes the raw product into something more valuable? Who builds the brand? Who controls the data? Who has the relationship with the buyer? Who receives financing? Who gets protected when the market changes? Who carries the risk? And who enjoys the reward? Because let's be honest, the farmer carries risk from the beginning. The farmer risks the seed. The farmer risks the land. The farmer risks the labor. The farmer risks the weather. The farmer risks disease. The farmer risks pest. The farmer risks bad roads. The farmer risks delayed payments. The farmer risks unfair pricing. The farmer risks market manipulation. The farmer risks political instability. The farmer risks global price changes they did not create and cannot control. And after all of that, they are often told to accept whatever price is offered to them. That is not partnership. That is extraction. And I believe we need to call it what it is. Now, this is not about attacking every buyer, every exporter, every company, or every government. That is not the purpose of this conversation. The purpose is to reframe the conversation. Because if we continue to see farmers as poor, we will build charity systems around them. But if we begin to see farmers as first investors, then we have to build ownership systems with them. That is a very different conversation. Charity says, how do we help the farmer survive? Ownership says, how do we help the farmer capture more of the value they already create? Charity says, let's give them something. Ownership says, let's build systems where they are no longer forced to beg for what their labor already made possible. Charity says, here's temporary relief. Ownership says, here is infrastructure. And that is where media comes in. Because one of the reasons farmers remain invisible is because their stories are not being told by them. Their image is controlled by someone else. Their struggle is packaged by someone else. Their poverty is photographed by someone else. Their pain is used to raise money by someone else. But their genius, their wisdom, their strategy, their knowledge of land, seasons, soil, community, family, and survival, that rarely gets centered. Media has a responsibility here, and I believe this with everything in me. Media should not only entertain, media should reveal value. Media should restore dignity. Media should expose broken systems. Media should educate markets. Media should connect producers to opportunity. Media should make the invisible visible, not as victims, as architects. The farmer is not a background character in Africa's economic story. The farmer is the opening scene. So what would happen if we told the story differently? What would happen if every cocoa farmer had a media profile? What would happen if every coffee cooperative had a digital platform? What would happen if agriculture communities had podcasts, short documentaries, buyer education videos, WhatsApp campaigns, websites, product stories, and direct-to-market media strategies? What would happen if the world did not just see the chocolate bar, but saw the hands that made the chocolate possible? What would happen if buyers understood the land, the family, the sacrifice, and the human cost behind the commodity? What would happen if farmers were not just suppliers, but brands? That is where the future is. The future is not just exporting raw commodities. The future is ownership, processing, packaging, branding, storytelling, distribution, education, data, technology, media, trust, and direct relationships. Because the world does not only buy products. The world buys stories. The world buys trust. The world buys meaning. The world buys identity. And Africa has one of the most powerful stories on earth. But Africa must own the microphone. Let me say that again. Africa must own the microphone. Because whoever controls the story controls the value. Whoever controls the narrative controls the perception. Whoever controls the perception influences the price. And whoever controls the price controls the future. This is why I believe media and agriculture must come together. Not as a cute idea, as an economic necessity. Farmers need better roads. Farmers need better financing. Farmers need better equipment. Farmers need better storage. Farmers need better processing facilities. Farmers need better access to markets. Yes, all of that is true. But farmers also need visibility. They need media. They need storytelling. They need documentation. They need education. They need platforms. They need digital identity. They need proof of value. They need to be seen as business owners, not charity cases. And for those listening outside of Africa, I want to challenge you too. When you drink your coffee, ask where it came from. When you eat your chocolate, ask whose hands made it possible. When you buy food, ask who carried the risk. When you hear the word farmer, do not think small, think foundation. Think investor, think architect, think nation builder. And for my brothers and sisters here in Cameroon and across Africa, I want to say this with love and conviction. Your story has value. Your land has value. Your labor has value. Your culture has value. Your knowledge has value. Your community has value. Your voice has value. The value that is not protected can be taken. Value that is not documented can be ignored. Value that is not organized can be underpaid. Value that is not branded can be replaced. Value that is not owned can be extracted. So the question becomes, how do we move from production to ownership? How do we move from survival to sovereignty? How do we move from being suppliers to becoming partners? How do we move from being price takers to becoming value makers? How do we build systems where the farmer does not just grow the crop, but participates in the wealth the crop creates? I believe part of that answer is education. Part of that answer is cooperative power. Part of the answer is media literacy. Part of the answer is digital infrastructure. Part of the answer is local processing. Part of the answer is transparent markets. Part of the answer is better storytelling. Part of the answer is teaching the next generation farming is not a symbol of poverty. Farming is one of the oldest forms of entrepreneurship on earth. A farmer wakes up before the market opens. A farmer invests before the buyer appears. A farmer produces before the contract is even signed. A farmer trusts before the harvest is guaranteed. That is entrepreneurship. That is courage. That is faith in action. So no, the farmer is not waiting at the end of the line for sympathy. The farmer is standing at the beginning of the line with value. And the rest of the world has built industries from that value. Now it is time to build systems that honor the origin. This is why I'm so passionate about media empowerment here in Cameroon and across all of Africa. Because when people own their story, they can begin to own their future. When communities document their value, they can negotiate from a different position. When producers become visible, they become harder to exploit. When farmers become brands, they become more than suppliers. When young people see agriculture connected to technology, media, business, and global trade, they stop seeing farming as something to escape and start seeing it as something to transform. Imagine a new generation of African agriculture media. Farmers with YouTube channels, cooperatives with buyer-facing websites, villages with digital marketplaces, young people producing documentaries about local crops, women farmers telling their stories directly to the world, agriculture schools teaching media, branding, and digital commerce, local products packaged with QR codes that show the story of the producer, exporters partnering transparently with the communities who make their business possible, consumers seeing the face, the land, and the life behind what they buy. That is not fantasy. This is possible, but it requires a mindset shift. And the first shift is this: stop seeing the farmer as poor. Start seeing the farmer as the first investor. Because if the farmer is the first investor, the farmer deserves respect, If the farmer is the first investor, then the farmer deserves information. If the farmer is the first investor, then the farmer deserves fair participation. If the farmer is the first investor, then the farmer deserves access to technology. If the farmer is the first investor, then the farmer deserves a voice. If the farmer is the first investor, then the farmer deserves more than sympathy. They deserve ownership. And this is bigger than farming. This is about Africa's future. Africa cannot continue to be seen only as a place where raw materials come from. Africa is not raw. Africa is refined. Africa is brilliant. Africa is created. Africa is strategic. Africa is young. It's powerful. Africa is spiritual. It's innovative. Africa is not waiting to be saved. Africa is waiting for systems that stop stealing the value of what she already creates. And I believe Cameroon could be part of leading that conversation. From Limbe, from Bafut, from Buya, from Bamenda to Yaoundé, from the farms, from the villages, from the markets, from the schools, from the media hubs, from the young creators with cell phones, from the mothers who know the land, from the fathers who have carried the burden, from the elders who understand seasons better than any algorithm, from youth who can take tradition and technology and build something the world has never seen. This is the moment, not to beg for a seat at the table, but to build tables, to build platforms, to build brands, to build systems, to build media, to build ownership. So today, I want to honor the farmer, not with pity, with respect, not with charity, but with recognition, not with sympathy, but with strategy. To every farmer in Cameroon, to every farmer across Africa, to every producer whose hands have created value that someone else became wealthy from, you are not small, you are not invisible, you are not the problem. You are the beginning. You are the first investor, and the world needs to know your name. This is Joshua T. Berglan, the world's mayor, coming to you from Limbe, Cameroon, and this has been the World's Mayor Experience. May we build a world where the people who create the value are no longer erased from the value chain. May we build media that restores dignity. May we build systems that create ownership. And may we never again look at a farmer and see poverty first. May we see the investor. May we see the architect. May we see the future. God bless Cameroon, God bless Africa, and God bless every hand that feeds the world. Thank you.